Okay, you guys, so this is going to be a bit of a different video than the way I typically do my videos. And the reason for that is because at the time that this goes up, it will be my 1-year anniversary on this channel of uploading these types of videos. Like I've mentioned before, I actually had started this channel several months before I started uploading reaction and review videos on a regular basis, but that was a video that just had nothing to do at all with what I ended up wanting to do with the channel. So I hid it, made it private, whatever, and decided that I would just focus on this sort of stuff. And so that first day of uploading, which was for a reaction and review of the trailer The Farewell, because that was on my mind a lot that particular day. And so today, as of the day this is up, it has been 1 year. So I wanted to do something a little bit different for the 1-year anniversary, the big anniversary. And what I had thought about doing for a long while was, well, someone had suggested it to me and I thought about doing it anyway, but their suggestion kind of put the idea more firmly in my head. It's just taken many months for me to get around to doing it. What I'm going to do is, well, I've talked a lot about my top favorite movies, like my top 10 favorite movies. I've mentioned maybe a few titles here and there, but I haven't done an actual official list. Even for myself, I haven't for the first time ever sat down and written an actual official list. I will have to say that the way I'm filming this video is going to be a little different, and I hope I'm able to pull it off technically. I'm not sure. We'll see. But anyway, if I have some issues, bear with me. I'll try to make it be very, smooth and everything as it goes along. But on my list, the top one, of course this would happen while I'm filming. The top 1 or 2 slots, they are firm. They don't change. It's everything below that could come and go. It's been pretty consistently the same movies though for a good while. There's not really any particular super strong order for the things below, like number 1 or below 1 and 2. It's just a matter of how I feel at that particular moment. So while I'm going to count down from 10, that doesn't necessarily mean it's has any less or greater value to me than maybe the one that came before or after. It's just how I felt when I sat down and put the list together. So I'm going to proceed with movie number 10.
Toughest kid in the neighborhood was, right? I want to know the toughest man on the planet is. That's what we're going to find out.
The Warrior, starring Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy, Nick Nolte, Jennifer Morrison, I believe that's the name of the actress who played the wife of Joel Edgerton. This was, I remember when it came out and I was only mildly interested in it. Then my brother told me how good it was and I watched it. This did make my list of the top 10 films, my top films of the decade. It's a story of 2 estranged brothers who end up meeting each other in the final match of this huge MMA competition. And so, there's all that, there's drama because of their broken relationship, which was caused by their alcoholic father, played by Nick Nolte, who did a fantastic job, you guys. He was so good in this movie. So that background obviously added a layer of an extra depth or an extra layer of just anxiety over what was going to happen, because as you're watching this movie, you pull for both of these guys. You like them both. One is obviously more troubled than the other, but he's not a bad guy. And they had just have these issues. It's so beautifully done, you guys. And that the final scene at the end, it has been one of my favorite ending scenes in most of the movies that I've seen. I really, really love it. You'll have to see it to get what I'm saying. I have had one person who kind of like laughed at it and thought it was kind of silly and ridiculous, but I thought it was very well done. And the score, the music that was playing at the time, just beautiful, you guys, beautiful. And this is a movie that I have never forgotten, and I thought about it a lot after I saw it that first time, and I've seen it several times since then, and it remains such a good movie. This sort of film, a character drama, it's not typically something that I really gravitate toward, as I've said many times before in my other videos, but there was something about the way this was done. It was so captivating, and it just really pulled me in that I made an exception for this film, and it ended up in, you know, as far as what I liked, and it ended up in my top 10 slot. So now, moving on to number 9.
If you want to believe in magic, in beauty, in friendship, and freedom, believe in the Black Stallion.
The Black Stallion. You guys, I love horses. They're so gorgeous. I don't really ride them much. I think the last time I was on a horse was when I was in college, and I took a horseback riding class because it was an elective I got to pick, and it was like, that's awesome. I'm going to do it. So I used to read these books when I was a teenager. So I obviously, you know, though I had a connection with this, you know what, to tell you the truth, I cannot recall if I read the book first or watched the movie first. It doesn't matter. I love them both. The first movie is, to me, the best. I saw the second one too. Not quite as good. It's sad. It's really sad, the second one. And I hated the way that it ended. Not that it had a bad ending, but just a sad ending, you know, kind of bittersweet. But anyway, there's something just so sweet and magical about this first movie. The synopsis is there is a young boy and his father. I think it takes place in like the 40s or 50s, something like that. Young boy and his father, they're on a ship. I don't even know where they were going to or coming from or whatever. I don't recall. But the ship goes down, and the only survivors was this little boy and this Arabian stallion, and they're stuck on this island. And so the stallion is wild. I mean, he's just like, he's not very easily tamed, and he doesn't like people. But as they are on this island, they have to learn how to survive, and they end up forming a bond. And then eventually they get rescued, and the story progresses from there to other things. I don't want to say too much in case you guys have not seen it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's so good. The music is good. The cinematography is gorgeous. The acting is very well done. Mickey Rooney shows up in here as an old friend, that an older guy that the kid befriends. And Terry Garr plays his mother. And the scene at the end, the final climax of the movie, is just amazing. I loved it. Very, very powerful. About as impactful to me as the scene of the ending scene of The Warrior. The Warrior probably a little bit more so because it's all humans involved. But you know, not that it's a step down because it's an animal and human involved or whatever. But it's a little different. The chemistry felt different, but still just absolutely gorgeous. And it's well worth a watch, if not for that final, the climax alone of this movie. So that's number 9. Moving on to number 8.
Aurora and Don Bluth Productions present a classic adventure in motion picture entertainment. I must tell you about Nim.
The Secret of Nim. This was a cartoon that I saw, an animated movie that I saw decades ago. I was a teenager at the time. I couldn't tell you how old exactly, but I watched this. I remember when it came out in theaters. I remember seeing stuff about it in the stores. I can't remember if I saw commercials like when I would be at a friend's house or family member's house, but I remember the movie memorabilia that I would see, coloring books or books and stuff like that. And I finally got around to watching the movie. I think I saw the movie for the first time when we rented it from the library way back when they would give you the films on big, huge projector rolls, and you would, reels, and you would put it on the projector, feed it through there, and watch it like on your wall or something. That's what we did for a lot of the films that I saw when I was in my teens and stuff. So this was one of the films that we watched, or that I watched. I can't remember if the rest of my family watched it with me. Anyway, I fell in love with this movie. From the first moment that I saw it, I absolutely loved it. The voice acting in here was great. Dom DeLuise plays the crow, the crow there to the right of the main character. The premise of the story. I was about ready to combine the word premise and synopsis. That would have been funny, wouldn't it have? It's late, as you know, like always. The premise of the story is about this little mouse. Her name is Mrs. Brisby, and her son Timmy is sick with pneumonia, and she's trying to get some help for him. She's a newly widowed mother, young mother, and as she goes on her journey to try to find help for her son, it ends up becoming clear that her house physically needs to be moved because they're in like a farmer's field, and the farmer's going to come through with his tractor. And she runs into this group of rats who live down in like this area in the farmer's land, like under the well, like someplace underground. And these are highly intelligent rats. And she finds out more about them, and she finds out about her husband's past that she never knew. And these rats came from NIM, the National Institute of Mental Health. They had been lab rats. And these experiments that had been done on them when they were in the lab made them intelligent. And so they were different than your typical rat. So anyway, there's some intrigue, action, comedy, some touching, sweet moments. The animation is very well done, and like I said, the voice acting is really good. Dom DeLuise is one of the best parts of this movie, and the voice actress who did Mrs. Brisby, the main character, I can't remember her name, Elizabeth Hartman or something Hartman. Anyway, a sad story about her is that not too long after this movie came out, which I think was like in the early-ish 80s, maybe 83, 82-ish, around there. It wasn't, I might be totally wrong, but I think that's what it was. It wasn't too terribly long after this film came out that she committed suicide. She obviously had some struggles, in her life, and it just became too much for her, and she took her own life. But certainly this is something worth checking out, even if you're not really into animated shows or movies, stuff like that. It's worth a watch. It's great. It was a Don Bluth film, I think that was the company that worked on this. Yeah, Don Bluth says it right there. Okay, moving on to number 7.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Halloween, 1978. This movie scarred me for life. At the same time, it is my very favorite horror movie of all time. Nothing has been able to beat it. I've seen this movie so many times. I watch it every Halloween. I have watched all these different DVD versions of it, listened to the commentaries. I know a lot about this movie. Like I said, it scarred me. I saw it when I was way too young as a child. And I continue to have nightmares about Michael Myers. I'm a full-grown adult, you guys. I'm many decades old. I shouldn't still be having nightmares about something that scarred me as a kid, a fictional character, a fictional story, and yet I do. And I don't know if that's why it's my favorite, because I just have this really weird connection with this emotional, intense connection with this movie, or if it's because the movie's actually very good. or if it's both. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm stuck with this movie in my head. It won't leave me. I'll always think of this film when I think of any sort of horror movie. And who knows, because I'm talking about Michael Myers, I might end up having a freaking nightmare about him tonight. It would not surprise me. Anyway, this movie was very well done, pretty cheaply made, as far as, the cost of movies go. There's just so much trivia I could share about this. I'm not going to get into too much of that, but if you don't know it by now, which I would be truly surprised if you don't, the premise of the story is that this kid, he killed his older sister when he was like, I don't know, 7 or 8, something like that. And he gets taken off to a mental institution. And then when he turns 21, he ends up breaking out. And he goes back to his hometown and he just starts killing people. I mean, he's a faceless, because he wears a mask the whole time, pretty much the whole time, except for a little tiny clip at the end. Very short shot. And you don't know what's his deal. Why is he doing this? He never talks. You hear this freaky, creepy breathing that he does behind his mask. That was really creepy. I remember that from a kid. I mean, from the time when I was a kid, how much that creeped me out to hear that. And the story follows Laurie Strode, the main protagonist. She's the one who kind of notices things are not right. She spots him, and she just, she gets a feeling, and it ends up, coming to this showdown basically between the two of them. I mean, that's what it's going to be because, well, you can just tell as the movie's going on, even if you you watch the trailer and you get that. Donald Pleasance played in here as the psychiatrist, and he knows the danger that Michael Myers poses to society, this neighborhood that he's gone back to. And so he's trying to warn the law enforcement of the town. So he goes back there to try to stop him. He was so expensive. Well, it's not that he was horrendously expensive, but he was a big name actor at the time. And John Carpenter, when he was making this movie, he was pretty fresh out of film school, I think. And he didn't have a ton of money. And they could only afford to hire Donald Pleasance for 4 days. This is what I've heard. 4 days. So he had a lot of filming that had to be done in those 4 days. And anyway, it was just here. I'm getting into trivia, and I said I wasn't going to, because I could talk about this movie a lot. But I'm going to stop and move on to the next movie. But I'm going to tell you that I cheated a little bit on my list. I said top 10, but honestly, you guys, there are some movies that I can't leave out because they're sort of connected to ones that made this list. So, having said that, I'm going to move on to number 7.5. This was 7. This is 7.5. So I like 7, but 7.5 is so closely behind it, I can't really separate the two. And 7.5 happens to be...
I've waited for him.
Halloween 2018. Now, I have seen all of the Halloween sequels, and I like some better than others. I think my favorite sequel, not counting this, is Halloween H2O. Halloween it was 20 years later. It came out in 1998. In my mind, the perfect Halloween trilogy was Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O. Now, I don't like Halloween 2 very much. It starts off okay, not too bad, but then it starts to kind of crumble and fall apart midway to the end, because then he becomes like almost superhuman, and he's walking down hallway corridors, or she's running down hallway hospital corridors that are practically black, and that's not, like all the lights practically off. That doesn't happen in hospitals. That's one thing I don't like about horror movies. When they show them in the hospital, they always have the lights way down, and that's not the case in the hospital. The lights are bright pretty much 24/7 in the hallways. So anyway, but it got really ridiculous at the end. But because Halloween H2O directly references the events of Halloween 2, I kind of kept those in my head as the perfect trilogy. Well, When Halloween 2018 came around, they had said they were getting rid of everything that came after the original and, you know, between the original and Halloween 2018. So I was like, that's cool. I'm excited. I started hearing rumblings that there were positive reviews, and then I didn't want to find out anything more. I didn't watch any trailers or anything, didn't read any reviews, and I went to go see this movie, and holy cow, you guys, it was so freaking good. John Carpenter came back to work on the score with his son, and the dude who played Michael Myers, Nick Castle, he came back a little bit. He didn't play Michael the whole time. There was just one scene where he shows up, and it was the scene in, I'm not going to say. He shows up at some point in the mask. Obviously, you never see his face, so you don't know who is who. I only knew because I can't remember if Nick Castle said it or if the guy who was mostly playing Michael said what scene it was. Anyway, I got trivia I know about this too. One is that the dude who played Michael Myers, I cannot remember his name, but the guy who played Michael Myers, he actually used to be roommates with a professional hitman who gave him tips on how he should act. I was like, well, that's creepy. Anyway, that was a tangent. But yeah, Halloween 2018, it was very well done. The score was magnificent. The storytelling was very good. The final climax at the end just had me on the edge of my seat. It didn't creep me out as bad as the original Halloween did. But of course, you know, I was a full-grown adult by the time I saw it, so I could handle it. But still, you know, whatever. These two movies go together very, very well. And probably now, I'm just going to make, well, I have since the movie came out. There's been one Halloween between whatever. Now I'm going to make it to where instead of just Halloween 1978 that I watch also right afterwards, Halloween 2018. I like that it showed what happened to Laurie Strode after, the decline that she had in her life and how it messed up her relationships because of this traumatic thing that had happened to her in the 1978 movie. Anyway, I'm really excited for the next two films coming out. The next one, it was Halloween Kills. That was supposed to come out this October, but it has been delayed more than a whole freaking year. So I have to wait until October 2021 in order to see the next one. And then the last one will be the next October 2022. I hope that this wraps up in a good way for Laurie. I'm fearful that she's going to end up being killed. I think that would absolutely suck. And so I hope I'm wrong. Okay, that's it for that one, you guys. Moving on to number 6.
The war itself had become more perilous. The weapons had evolved. But our orders remained the same. Hunt them down and kill them off, one by one.
Underworld. This is one of those movies that I really wish I had seen in the theaters because holy cow, you guys, this movie is so much fun. I love the look of it. I love the acting. I love the action. I love the story. Kate Beckinsale is phenomenal in here. To me, she is. I mean, she is so kick-ass and she is so cool. I mean, my goodness, the black suit she has on and her hair and the way her eyes turn blue and the way she wields those guns. She is just a badass, you guys. She's so cool in here. I love vampire stories. I like werewolf stories, not quite as much as vampire stories, but this movie takes the two and combines them. This is such a perfect union of the two different types of horror characters. The premise of the story is that she is a vampire. She's called a death dealer, and she basically hunts down werewolves. That's what she does. There's been this feud between vampires and werewolves for centuries, and there's a reason for that gets explained as the story goes on. There have been several sequels to this film, none of them as good as the first, obviously. The second film was a sequel that started directly after the events of the first one, and then the third movie was a prequel which told the events that led up to the feud. That was okay. It wasn't really as well done as I feel like it could have been, but it was still fun to watch. I've seen all the sequels. I think there were 2 after number 3, so I think there have been maybe 5. I think 5. Those latest ones are really weak and not very well done, and it's a shame because this first movie was so good. They almost really should have just stopped. I mean, I've watched them anyway, just because, but nothing really, or none of them really hold a candle to the first one. The way the whole thing is filmed, I like the color palette that like this is like this, like, kind of like a bluish, grayish cast to it, dark, just very well done. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It would have been so much fun to watch this in the theater. I really am bummed that I did not go see it. I remember seeing the commercials for it, but didn't go check it out. Didn't really have much of an idea at the time what it was about, and then I saw it later. I'm like, oh, this movie is awesome. So that's why it made my top 10 list. Okay, moving on to number 5.